Hello, 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 and welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode here on The Remedy. I'm delighted to be with you once again on this beautiful Saturday. Today we have one of those topics that I believe that not that the other topics are not important, but I truly believe that this one is one of the utmost importance. And so, without any further ado, I want to invite the member of the crew to rock in, to lag in, to just come and join us as we get ready to begin the program today. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
You guys are looking beautiful, beautiful. Wait, I'm the only male here. What's going on here?
They got the notice.
Oh, we have one more. We have one more. There you
They know they're gonna be bashed.
Now it's complete. Okay, for a minute, I look like I was the only male among all these beautiful ladies.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
An observation.
Uh-huh.
I was told that we come in by the sequence. How did Michael come in last? It's right there next to Pastor D.
I mean, you just so swagged out, you know what I'm saying? It just,
No.
in the middle, like the Brady Bunch,
us women just can't win. We just can't win.
Here's what I suggest you do. Okay, I suggest you write a letter to the place that StreamYard that allow us to do this show and tell them exactly what you just said to me. And maybe they might provide a solution. I have no idea what's going on.
It's probably a bunch of men. It's okay.
Yeah. There goes the male bashing already. Well, guys, I'm glad everybody's happy. I'm glad everyone is here because the topic of today is rape culture. As excited as we are, this topic is one of the hardest topic, I believe, only because let me just start this way. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us, and all 7 of us. How many of you have either been assaulted or been raped, or know someone who have been assaulted or raped? Raise your hand. Okay, so every single one of us can testify to the discussion of today, can talk about this. We have experienced it ourselves, or we know someone who actually have dealt with it. So, and I believe everybody who's watching the program online can testify the same way. So the very first question I think I want to ask as we begin this conversation is simply this. What is rape culture? What is that?
I can start.
Sure.
Rape culture is a pervasive culture that allows the treatment of women to put them in positions where they can either be sexually assaulted or harassed and no one says anything, right? So you can, part of that is if a woman is sexually assaulted, her morality is questioned. What was she wearing? Where was she? What time of day was it? Was she already in a relationship with that person? Did she lead him on? All of these questions, as opposed to questioning what was the assault and who did it, right? And also, oftentimes, it is this attitude of boys will be boys. Well, girls shouldn't wear this because it enticed boys. And instead of telling boys, don't sexualize a girl, you're putting the onus on the girl. So all of these things are part of what rape culture is, right? It's this idea that we don't have any autonomy over ourselves and our bodies, and the onus is put on us as women and young girls, on how we should behave and act, and not on the person who may be doing the act. So that's a large kind of like umbrella of what it is.
And
So let me ask this because Woody, you brought that up. Okay. So I think it's important that we lay it on the table. Okay. And Marke, you can jump in because we're gonna look at this from a male perspective. Um, Not that we're playing devil's advocate, but I know how we men, how we think. We are men. Do you think, okay? And again, bear with me when we talk about rape culture, we're not saying this is only something that happened to women. Okay,
No.
it does happen to men. I think for us men, mm, I would say most of the time we will not report something like this because um it's gonna take the power away from us. And in other words, we're supposed to be the strong one. We're supposed to be, and we don't want to be labeled gay or this or whatever. So we tend not to even want to say anything even more. Is there, when we talk about the rape culture, is there a connection between modesty, okay, and rape culture? You mentioned clothes. Do you think some, in some ways, the way some people dress, and when I say you, I'm talking about everybody on the platform, can either provoke or attract someone to to do something to them? That's the question
I
I'm putting out there.
I want to start with that one. Now, in I'm going to be as honest as possible. Now, I'm a woman. I've gone and taken sensual classes. And in the sensual classes, of course, they teach you way as a woman to feel sensual, sexual. So there are definitely certain outfit that you wear that make one feel a little bit more sexier than usual. And of course, what I would wear to go to a club normally, I would not wear the same to go to church or to go to work. However, it can be perceived as, well, you wearing certain things, but despite what one is wearing or how sensual or sexual one is acting, if it comes to a point where you want to have or pursuing sexual activities with someone and that person say no, I have to say, I'm a woman and have flirtatious ways. And I think as women, I don't want to generalize, but even when I was, 13, 14, you get excited with boys, I do have flirtatious ways. Till now, I do know that I have flirtatious ways. But do those flirtatious ways eventually mean that I'm okay with what you're proposing? No, it does not. As a woman, you are taught to want to be sexy. You are taught to want to look your best. You are taught to, I know when I'm going somewhere and I'm dressed up and I'm like, wow, I look beautiful. I feel sexy and I own it and I feel good. But that feeling good does not mean that that's an invitation for you to do something to me. And there's a major difference. And unfortunately, people take that feeling good, that cute little sexy dress that you have on, the way it curves your body, as an invitation that this is what you want. And I think as the years go by and more, people are realizing, no, it does not equate to that. It doesn't matter how one dressed. It does not equate to that. And one should not equate it to, this is a piece of meat and I want some of it. It does not equate to that.
Yeah.
So
So
from
I
a
think one of the things, hold on one second. We have to, let's just be very, very clear. Rape is an act of violence. It's not a sexual act, right? And also a lot of these things are that. So the question and the premise is also, um, we have to be clear on what that is, because if someone wants to sexually assault or rape you, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. You could wear a burqa. You can have on a full tracksuit. And so even this premise is, I'm sorry, it's a little problematic. I understand that we're trying to have like a big conversation, but we just have to be clear that it doesn't matter if I'm walking down the street naked, you do not have the right to touch or anything. So this idea that it's tied to that, that's part of the rape culture, right? The idea that even the question itself lends itself to what we're trying to explain and dispel. So
It,
I just wanted to be clear about that. So Markel, I know you had something to say, but
yeah, I want
sorry.
to piggyback on that, and I'm piggyback on what Patty was saying as well. There's no direct correlation to what I wear means I'm interested in having sex or anything like that with you. There's no line that says that. There's no line that says what I wear means um, I want to be raped or I'm a victim of rape or anything of that sort, if you get what I'm saying. But from the male perspective, right? And I hope women don't crucify me or anything like that from what I'm saying. The type of outfits that you do wear in the public setting does tell us men, kind of, sort of, we don't know you, we haven't met you or anything like that, but it kind of, sort of tells us the type of female that you are, right? So, for example, someone has said
The
this to me
type of
before.
female you think that we are.
We think that we
The
are.
type
We
of
think
female
that
you
we
Yes.
are.
think that
Correct. We think that we are.
It's a perceived
It's a
notion, but I
perception.
have to agree with Markel that as much as we
let him
don't think that it has a correlation, subconsciously we have known that it has a correlation because even for me, when my daughters were growing up, there are certain things that were like, no, 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 you're not going on the street like that. You're not going in the street like that. Again,
It's
because
a
of that perceived
correct.
notion.
Correct. It's a perception thing. For example, some people don't know the difference between a police officer and a security guard, right? But if you see a security guard dressed up and everything like that, looking like a police officer, and something goes wrong, your initial perception is to run to that person and be like, "Yo, this is what's happening." Da, 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 da. It's not until you realize or until you get to know that person that, oh, you're just a security guard. You're not a real cop. You don't really have authority, but because you look like a real cop, to me, it makes me feel like you're a police officer, if that makes sense. So when we talk about um appearance and dressing, and I know it goes to like, well, does that mean I have to dress like a nun for someone to not think that that's the type of person I am? No, I'm not saying that. But if you are wearing certain outfits that perceive certain things to the male mind, it makes us think, hey, she's this type of woman, she's this type of girl. I'm gonna try to holler at that, or whatever the case, for whatever reason that's in mind. I'm not mentally seeing your intelligence. I'm not seeing, what it is you're trying to perceive besides what you're putting out there based off of what you're wearing.
I feel like that perspective really boils down to how we're socialized. And we're socialized to have these ideas about what kind of person you are based on how you dress, whether you're a man or a woman, but especially as a woman. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how a woman is dressed, because rape is not on a sexual basis. The problem with that mindset and how we're socialized is that we find any excuse for people who are perpetrators instead of um, helping the victims. Um, and I don't know, it's something that I had to um, overcome myself because I mean I come from a Haitian household. Like there are certain things that I was uncomfortable wearing at first because I was like, oh, I don't want someone to perceive me like this. Well, if I feel comfortable in what I'm wearing, no one else has the power to take that away from me. And no one should have the right to say what they want to say and not expect me to clap back for it. I shouldn't feel unsafe because of what I'm wearing.
And you are correct, Melody. You are totally correct. But what Markel and I are saying, the perceived notion, and because you and Rudy are saying the same thing, it shouldn't be. But I think we are here because there is a perceived notion that we cannot forget. There is that background. It should not, because rape should be considered a violence act, not a sexual act. But the current perceived notion also has underlying factors associated with the way somebody dressed when it should not be, period. So how do we get ourselves away from that perceived notion, from them seeing us a certain way?
I want to basically ask the question because I could see a guy wearing a nice, suit, or I could see a guy walking or running shirtless, but I don't feel the need to come out of my mouth and address him in a derogatory manner. So I find it frustrating that I can't go outside and wear a tank top or wear a sports bra without somebody catcalling me. Why do I have that intellect? Why do I have that intellectual understanding to have a level of respect for that person, and it's okay for a man to do the same thing in society?
Well, let me answer as for a male perspective again. What you're describing there is a little bit off topic of the rape situation, right? And Rudy's already shaking her head, but let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. As males, we are the hunters, right? We see something and we want to go for it. We want to go after it and things of that sort. As females, most of the time, and now new generation females are different. I've seen it with my own eyes. They see something and they won't say nothing. They won't try to approach that man or anything. They'll try to make themselves be in a position for the male to see them, but they won't like put themselves out there. So for a guy to see a female walking and looking sexy or whatever, he wants to go after her. He'll go up to her and talk to her, or be like, "Yo, shorty," hoping that she turns around. If she turns around, then he wants to go, and spit his game in a sense. But if it's the vice versa thing, a female won't. Yo, dude, hey, dude, with no shirt, I see you, boy.
With a great sweatpants on,
That's not gonna happen. You see what I'm saying? Because
and you know what? And you know what? To what Markel is saying, when I was growing up, and I'm much older than Mandy and Melody and Wendy, it was a form of flattery. Kate and I used to walk around with our cute outfit, and we'll count how many guys say hello to us. It was a form of flattery, to be honest with you.
So here's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm asking all the wrong questions because I want us to think about this. Because it's almost like this culture put the emphasis on, or put the we expect the woman, or we expect the young person to be in charge of what happened to them, if I can put it this way. We expect a 13-year-old to know what to put on, how to dress a certain way so that they don't attract. We teach them that. I mean, I've heard it from youth groups. We sit together with the young people and we are teaching the young girls how they should dress so that they don't attract the wrong person. So this is the culture. This is what I'm saying. It's part of what we've been teaching. Melody?
Like I said, it all comes down to how we're socialized. It's acceptable for a man to catcall because it's, oh, boys will be boys. You're supposed to be flattered by it.
Exactly.
It's not acceptable for girls because that's not how we're supposed to act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's all culture. It's not anything concrete.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I feel like the notion that, well, men are hunters, when they see something they want, they're going to go get it. I feel like that's a part of rape culture.
Yeah.
Because if you see something you want, that doesn't mean you're practically stealing from her or him.
Yes.
It makes me uncomfortable that people honestly think if I'm walking down, I wear so many outfits and people will still catcall me. Yes. I'll be with my book bag. Men will catcall me. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, yo, shawty, what's up? And I'm like, I'm about to run away because I'm like, that doesn't give you the right. If I look good, keep it to yourself. Exactly. I don't need to hear, oh, what's up? Let me talk to you. Or you look good in those pants. No. That's not acceptable to me, and I hate it.
So, Wendy, would you ask a guy to a prom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that new generational. That's the new generation stuff that I was
And that's
talking
what I'm
about.
saying.
Because
But guys, but I think, but asking a guy to the prom, it is not
Right.
the same thing as
no, but Monday, you have to look at what Mark and I are doing is you have to look at the history. There's been centuries of the history. And now I'm not by no means rape. I'm not going to say, anybody should put their hands on anyone. What Mark and I are trying to show you guys as to why for the longest male were considered the chasers, and it was an accepted societal cultural thing. And even us as women, like I said, I used to walk around with my cute little clothes, Kate and I. And, when people say, hey, Charlie, whatever, it was cute. We know they weren't going to touch us. It was cute. You want your little affection. You 14, 15, you're walking down the street. And we were okay with that. But back then, that's what it was. And it was accepted. And when you went to a party, you expected a male to come and ask you to dance.
Right.
You didn't expect to go pick up. If I didn't find a male asking me to dance, if Kid and I or my sister and I were at the party, I'll grab them and we'll start dancing.
So that
was the background that we
guys.
was accepted.
I also
However, the new generation is saying that they feel uncomfortable with that. So that needs to be changed.
And it's because I think it has to go back to respect. If you're trying to talk to me when I'm walking down the street, there's a way to do it. You don't have to yell at me from across the street. You march yourself over and you address me like a human being. You don't say, oh, you with the tight pants or you with the big butt. You don't say those things. You address me like a person. So I think that's the issue that I'm having with this whole catcalling thing, or boys will be boys type of thing, because they're getting extremely disrespectful. That's my problem with it.
And we didn't have in my generation. Woody, this is your turn. We didn't have that in my generation. The boys were much respectful.
Yeah, see, it's different now. It's way different.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rudy.
So I'm going to say something. Men have always been this way, and certain women have always been this way, right? The difference is this: when you know better, you do better. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that have changed in society. In the 1960s, a woman couldn't have a bank account without asking for her husband's permission, right? And so now we live in a world where we realize that the things that were taught to us were not okay. And so what we have to do now is we understand, even the fact that we're referring to women and men as male and females is problematic, right? Like in that term, even when you say that a man is a hunter, that is part of that thing. So where we are now, what we have to talk about is, how do we change it? What are we doing with our nieces, nephews, sons, cousins, so that they can understand that behavior is no longer accepted in society? It's almost like when we're talking about like what Black Lives Matter mean and wanting equality and all of this other stuff. That happens in the past, right? But we have to just be careful and understand that okay, yeah, a lot of things people did in the past happened. It wasn't right. So we all know what it was. We don't need to explain that part. What we need to do is talk about what are the signs, what are the signals, and how can we move forward? And especially with, we have young girls on the call who are in school, right? Mm-hmm. Who are in work, who are in church. What are the things that we can see to say, hey, wait a minute, what you just said is wrong. I just watched online, I don't want to, something happened between a married couple. I don't even want to talk about it. But what I noticed was all of the attacks on this woman. And I'm like, we live in this society where women don't have ownership of our bodies. And we're taught that at a young age by telling them how to dress, how to act. Again, if we want to talk about Haitian culture, go greet this person and kiss them. It doesn't matter if that person made you feel creepy or uncomfortable how many times. But you're teaching them, and we're indoctrinating young girls at such a young age that no matter what they have going on, it doesn't matter, because if a man wants it or wants you have to kind of just sit back and take it. And so that's why this whole conversation, we have to be Like, okay, we understand that's how men used to think. Let's talk about how we can change it so that when you're in a barber shop and somebody says something and you don't want to put them on blast, maybe you bring them to the side if that's your homie and be like, yo, listen, maybe that's not the way. Think about this. You have a daughter. Imagine a man doing that to your daughter. You know what I mean? Like, we have to start to think about like the ways going forward. We understood what it was before. You know, when I was catcalled when I was in, since I was like, I was sexualized since I could remember when I had breasts at 10 years old. I couldn't control that. You know what I mean? And no one was held accountable for it. So now we're at 2020. Let's get everyone and understand that like it's a social, like they're socializing us to believe this. Let's break that pattern and move forward.
Yeah. I think, Rudy, you mentioned something important. Oftentimes, we are not taught about bodily autonomy and consent, and within our own homes and our schools. And I think that is something that has to change because when you learn about consent and what consent looks like in relationships in everyday life, you are more equipped to protect yourself and to protect others because oftentimes it is put on the victim to be equipped with all of this knowledge from even from young ages when it is never their fault.
Yeah. And I feel like we're conditioned almost to just not expect, but we see all the time, like through TV, movies, all that stuff. Usually, a man he'll come onto a woman, she'll push him away, and then he'll keep going. And we're supposed to see that
Yeah,
as, oh, that's sexy,
it's
that's charming.
romantic.
Like, she wants it, even though she said no at first. No, he should have stopped the first time.
We
He
were
shouldn't have
friends.
even approached her that way.
Yeah,
And then you have these young girls who get into these situations and he's like, oh, well, he's just a little aggressive. Like, it's so cute. And then they end up beat up and left somewhere. And then they wonder, well, what happened? Well, it turns out that society's idea of that being acceptable in real life, it's different.
it's crazy.
So
Now,
here's my
let me ask
okay.
this. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm going to let you speak next.
Go ahead.
And in fact, before I ask my question, I'll let you go ahead because I think my question is really gonna challenge you guys to think even a little bit deeper. And again, I'm not playing the devil's advocate, but I think
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere here. But Markel, go ahead.
So so kind of just listening, and we talk about society. Are we trying to say that the people, and now it's male or female, that commit these rape acts, are they, how am I trying to phrase this? Are they a product of society? Is that kind of how we're saying it? Because
Yeah.
some of them, even if you say no, they'll play the, oh, she's playing hard to get, or whatever the case may be. Or if it's a female, he's not wanting or receiving her, so she continues to push and push and push, or so. And that to me has nothing to do with what society is putting out there. That's more so just the issue, the mental connipts that person has that makes them want to continue and forcefully now push you down and all this other type of stuff. I don't think society plays an effect on that, on the
Um,
person.
Well,
So
I think that
can I
it goes back to, I guess,
answer that
what.
question?
Oh, go ahead, Woody. Hello.
So,
Go
Markel,
ahead, Woody.
what we're trying to say is that you're indoctrinated in such a way from such a
Mhm.
young age that you don't even realize that society is playing a part. So, in the sense of when you are in school and a boy catcalls and the girl hits the boy, right? This is just an example. She's
mhm.
taken to the principal office and they're like, well, why did you do that? And they're like, she's like, well, he catcalled. And they're like, well, boys will be boys. He was just giving you a compliment,
Yeah,
Well,
right?
in,
yeah.
So
in that
wait,
situation,
wait,
in that wait, in
let
that
me
situation, simply because the boy catcalled does not mean you needed to retaliate with hitting.
you gotta let me finish. Oh, hold on. You gotta let me finish because what I'm saying to you is that even if he touched her, whatever it is that he did, what I'm saying is the retaliation. What happens is that the girl is put on. Say she didn't hit him. Say she cursed him out. Well, why should you curse him out because he catcalled? You should feel flattered that a boy is saying this to you. That's part of that indoctrination.
Hmm.
Or when you are when when you are watching like a movie like Wendy mentioned, and it's like the boy keeps on, pursuing, and at the end of the movie the girl relents, and then finally they go live off in happily ever after. You realize that she didn't have ownership of that. So it's taught from a very young age, and you don't even realize it, right? Like when I was talking about the barbershop, or when you're on in a locker room, some of the language that is being said around you to make you think that it's okay for you to do it too, that's part of it. So while what we're saying is that not everyone is going to go off and rape someone because of that, right? But part of the rape culture is you saying, well, uh, is questioning even what the woman did to put herself in that position, because you've been indoctrinated and socialized since you were young to not to realize that those behaviors are problematic. So that's
Yeah.
what we're saying. You know what I mean? Like
In the same
that. Like, go ahead. Go ahead.
in the same way that we're taught, like from a young age, to respect police officers, to love your country. Not everybody is gonna grow up and be like, "Oh, America's the best country in the world," blah 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 blah. You can unlearn these things, but that doesn't mean that you weren't taught and that you believed it at one point. So just because some people are able to break free from that mindset, oh, I'm not owed anything, and I understand that, doesn't mean that everyone will. Some people really do believe that they're owed something because of the way
Right.
that society frames it.
Yeah.
I think,
So go ahead, Wendy.
okay, yeah, I just think we we need to put accountability on the
Yeah.
perpetrators, not the victim. I think that's the biggest thing, because I feel like even if somebody decides to violate someone, society tends to make excuses. Well, that person shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. They shouldn't have been wearing what they were wearing. And then the perpetrator gets off, and then they'll continue to do it till they die.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we started putting accountability, and that we could, stop it, or at least we could give the victim some type of closure, or we can give them
Support.
support.
Yeah, so I guess this leads to the next question. We talk about accountability. We talk about removing the blame from the woman. But I'm going to give you a scenario that happens a lot. Okay, because part of this show is we need to identify the problems, and then we also need to identify ways to eliminate some of those problems, so that way certain things don't happen. I've heard stories upon stories where women and teenagers or whatever, they go out partying, there's drinking involved, music, and one thing lead to another, and people are getting drunk or not so drunk, and you know they started doing whatever, and one thing led to another. At some point she said no, but he continues on, and then there's a rape. And especially when you look at what's going on in colleges and things like that, there are stories upon stories that comes out exactly like that. What is it that needs to happen to prevent that kind of setting, well, not even the setting, that kind of behavior to continue? Is it the fact that, is it the drinking that's the problem? Is it the men not thinking about their actions, or the consequence of their action? But is it also the woman not thinking about the consequence of their action by putting themselves in certain situations where they are more likely to be victimized? Again, I know I'm not saying it's okay to become a victim. I'm saying that, isn't it possible that sometimes you place yourself in vulnerable situations that may cause you to become a victim? Again, I'm posing the question. Mindy, you wanted to tackle it.
Um, I don't think it's okay to blame the victim if she was drunk, if she was high, if she couldn't see her left from right, because she still had to be victimized by someone. So I feel like there needs to be a lot of education geared towards no. When a woman says no, it means no. If she says it one time, it means no. If she says it while you guys are kissing, it means no. If she says it while you guys are touching, it means no. You leave her alone at that point. I feel like a lot of men will continue to push you, especially and take advantage of the fact that you're in this situation. So it's still an issue of the perpetrator. And I feel like there needs to be more education in the church, in the school, at home with your children, talking to young boys and young women, because women can also be predators. You need to talk to people and have them understand that at the end of the day, if that person said no one time, don't do anything. Because you, and if they're inebriated, then they're not in the right mindset to say yes or no to anything. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like in those situations, whoever is drunk, they are a victim of opportunity. If not her, somebody else. I feel like the drinking, of course, you shouldn't be underage drinking, but that's a different topic. But I feel like the drinking isn't really the problem. It's still the perpetrator at the end of the day.
Yes.
Why? He shouldn't feel that, oh, she's drunk. She probably wants it anyway. I'm going to do it. That you're thinking like a rapist in that sense. If you didn't see her, even if she was, sober, you would have saw somebody else across the room and you were just like, well, she can't say no to me, so I'm gonna still do it. And you'll probably get away with it because nobody else is going to offer support to that victim. They're like, well, you were drunk, you probably said yes. That shouldn't even be a factor, in my opinion.
By law, I think at least in Pennsylvania, by law, when someone's under the influence of anything, they can't consent legally. So that you can go to jail for that.
That's
And
Hold on a second. So we are quick to say.
I'll get her a little tipsy. I'll get her a little drunk, and we'll see where that goes.
Exactly.
And that's in your mind.
Let me take
this. Is that for real?
Let me take the scenario that Mondi gave, the story, and for 1 second, for one moment, I'm just going to remove alcohol from it. Right? Let's just remove alcohol because, of course, if the person was intoxicated or anything like that, their judgment and everything is challenged. Right?
Well, I guess my point, Markel, before you go ahead, and I'm going to let you speak. My point, it wasn't just one person doing the drinking. Both of them were drinking. So the mental awareness or the capacity to make good decisions at that time has diminished significantly on both parties. Go ahead.
No, but my thing is, and I know it's a panel of females here, and again, I'm not playing devil advocate because I have a daughter, I have a wife, and anyone mess with my nieces, it's you already know. So what I mean by that is this, when I say this statement here,
cousins to hang.
my cousin, we ride. You know what I'm saying? It's everything. Women do have to take. With Mondi's question, women do have to hold themselves accountable. I know Rudy got that face already, but let me tell you why I say that. Once you say no, just like Mandy said, it should have been no. Like that's it. There's nothing further than that. But if we're at a party, going back to the story, taking away the alcohol, we're at a party, she is dancing on me, she's touching me, she's grabbing me, which has happened before to me. As an example, I'm at a party, she's dancing on me, she's grabbing me, she's touching me, she's giving me all the indications that she wants the night to continue on. I'm not saying that. Wait, can I finish my statement?
Go ahead.
I'm actually with Markel, and when Markel is done, I haven't spoken in a while. If you guys don't mind, I would like to say something.
You can't automatically just say it's his fault at the end of the night. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not praying that it happened, but you can't automatically say you did all this to make us believe that this is where we were going, and then when we get where we're going, you now want to be like, oh no, I'm not doing this anymore. So you have to have accountability too, because you were giving me signs, you were doing things, you were touching me, you were grabbing me, etc., etc., etc. Is there no accountability for the female doing that? What part
So if I give you indication,
is that not considered rape? Is that not
All
considered rape?
I
You
want to
can't
say something. I want to say
say
something.
you can touch me.
I have to agree with Michael in that. I mean, I know some people to the point that I refuse to go anywhere with them. A few people because of that behavior. At what point now? Again, I'm not saying it's okay for anybody to get raped. I would never say whether it's male, female, dog, cat, ever. But if you constantly go somewhere and you display that attitude, it's not a. At what point do you understand maybe you have an issue and there should be some accountability as well? Stop displaying to the point that I don't want to hang out with people like that. I don't want to see that in my face. There should be some type of accountability on your part as to the way that you display yourself every single time. Every single time we go out, this is how you display yourself, to the point that many of the group that we hang together said, if such and such is coming, I'm not there. So that's a problem.
Anne Marie Tomlinson, she's on YouTube, and her comment in regards to this conversation is this: rape is rape. And a lot of time the intention, I love that. She said the intention was there before the act. Okay. And then she says spoken words is different from touching.
And I want to.
All right. So let's have the ladies go at this. Yes.
So if I want to first, so I'm just gonna talk. If I'm okay with making out with you, that doesn't mean I'm okay with having sex with you.
Exactly.
Period.
Or
If I
dancing
say
on
yes to one thing and I say no to another, that's it.
yes,
We stop there.
Yes.
And that's what I mean when we say we have to have education on consent. You can take indicate. You can take. Oh, she's flirting with me. She must want to like do something with me. And then if I say no on top of it, then that's the end of it.
yes. I feel like we have this notion that men are, if we give them hints, that means we automatically want it. My hint could be completely different. You might be taking it the wrong way, because I've had people that will be like, well, you smiled at me. That didn't mean I wanted you to touch me. Like, I was smiling because I saw my friend behind you. Like, I feel like consent it's a very broad term, but no means no. If she says it at any point, it means no. If she consents to sex with the condom and you take it off, that's also rape. That means stealthing. Consent is if she says no or she consents to one thing, that means she consented to that one thing. That doesn't mean you can keep going, try to push her, persuade her into doing more.
And there's nothing wrong with asking for explicit consent. If you're not sure, ask.
And if she says no, it's this.
So I have a question for Raquel.
All right.
With that same scenario, you dancing on a girl. She giving you all of the signals, right? She's touching you. You guys are making out. You go back home or wherever. And then she says no. You as Markel, right? You've never gone further. Why is that?
Because I respect myself and I respect the person that I was there with, and I know that no means no, and I'm not going to go any further than that.
So you answered your question there.
No, but the answer, but no, it wasn't about the male. I wasn't saying anything about the male. I was saying about the female, because Mandy's question was accountability. Does she have any accountability for her actions? Just like Anne Marie Thompson said, the intention was there before the act. Does she have any accountability for the intention that she's doing towards this guy before it even got to where we got back at?
So the problem is that you're saying because she turned you on, she has to be held accountable for what you then decided to do to her. That's what it sounds like.
No,
That's
no,
what
no,
it's.
no,
No, hold on,
no.
wait a
That's
minute.
not okay.
Wait, cows. That's why it's problematic. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. That you are saying that a woman should be held accountable. How is that holding? Raping her is not holding her accountable. Holding
No,
her
that
accountable.
that is that's not.
Guys, you got to let me finish talking. Holding her accountable is, if Patty, if that's the thing, then you talk to your friend and say, "Don't do that around me." That's holding her accountable. But that's not the conversation. The conversation is about rape culture, and what is it, and why is it pervasive, and what is it that we need to do. This whole conversation is problematic because you're telling a woman that she needs to be held accountable for flirting or touching you or doing something that you think is wrong. And now you have not, now we've shifted the conversation and we're not talking about that, like, you know, the fact that, like, it that that, like, at the end of the day, even if she did all of those things and she said no, you no longer have, you have no right to violate her because she didn't give you consent. Up until she's like, you could be inside of her, I hate to be graphic, and she says no, you got to come out, buddy. That's it.
I'm my nieces is here. We got
Sorry.
oh,
She spoke all that.
Rudy, I agree 100% with what you're saying. Right? Maybe I'm not explaining it right. And Team A Dot has mentioned comments in here. Blue balls does not equal rape. Now listen, I'm understanding the male side, but the question that Mondi posed, Pastor D posed, I think we're just skipping that part of her having accountability for putting herself in a certain situation.
No.
That's
I
part
feel
of the
like
problem.
No. No.
That's part of the problem. So, okay, fine. So now what we're saying is, if you're at a party and you're wearing something, then you need to be held accountable. So the accountability is how someone is treating you. That's
so
part
if a
of the
girl
problem.
if
That's
a
what I'm
girl
saying.
walks
You're
if
not.
a girl walks into a party by herself, she walks into a party, a house party, whatever the case may be, and there's 7 guys there, she should leave, right?
No,
That's
she should be able to stay and feel safe. That's the part of the
Yes.
problem.
Yup.
What
Yes.
is wrong with her and not saying that these 7 guys don't understand that they have
And
no right to touch
it's
you
not
or
even
just.
it's not even about the 7 guys doing anything. It's not even about them doing anything. It's just the fact that she's the only female there. That wouldn't be the best place for a
Woman.
female to be by
Wait.
herself.
But why is it not the best place for a female to be by herself?
That's
If
what we're
everybody
talking about.
understands that no means no, why is it
The
not okay for her
problem.
to
That's what they're
stay?
not understanding.
I think
That's
we
what we're
need to
trying
go
to
back.
tell.
I think we need to go back to what the point that Anne Marie was making. I don't know who she is, but I think she made a valid point. She said that a lot of time the intention was there before the act. In other words, to go back to Marcus' scenario, you're in a place, you are the only female there, and you are surrounded by 7 guys. If you are surrounded by 7 guys who respect you, who care about you will not be raped no matter what.
Mhm.
Exactly.
But if you are surrounded by 6 guys and one of them happen to have a different intention before the act, okay? Because a rapist, you mentioned earlier, Woody, that when someone rape is not a sexual thing, it's an act of violence. Okay, it's a power thing, right? So not all 7 guys. I mean, I heard about. I mean, I hear sometimes about gang rape, which is different, where all of them decided they're gonna rape that person, but still, it's an act of violence to show that they are the most powerful at that particular time. I guess what I was trying to ask, because we are having this conversation around the topic that 1 out of 3, every 2 minutes, someone that we know is being sexually assaulted or is being raped. And this kind of situations, I think what Markel is trying to say, isn't it not a good idea if you know there's going to be drinking involved in this and that, that you have to excuse yourself because you don't know which of these seven guys may have the wrong intention? Having said that, I am not saying that because you didn't remove yourself, it's your fault that it happened. I am not saying that. I'm just asking the questions to the ladies who are on the panel.
So meeting you
My thing is,
where we are.
Hold
for
on.
me, I understand that. I agree with the ladies that it shouldn't matter the situation and that it could be 10 guys. But I'll be honest with you, for me, I would excuse myself because if there's 7 men and I'm the only woman there, I would excuse myself. Maybe it's the old fashioned in me, but why would I stay in an area where there's drink and 7 men and just be the only person there? My
But
issue
again,
is
Pat,
me
again,
trying
Pat,
to,
she
yeah,
and this is coming from a viewer. She's saying, but that doesn't mean that because she's there, she wanted to have sex.
I
It doesn't mean
agree.
she wanted to be
I
raped.
totally agree. And in a perfect world, that should not matter. That person should be able to have fun. In this current world, and that's why I guess Woody and everybody else trying to take it. In a perfect world, it should not matter. For me, I would remove myself because in the current world that we're living now, I don't know. Like you said, it takes one guy. It just takes one person. I would remove myself from this situation. However, the purpose of the show is how can we educate the youngsters or or anybody so that it shouldn't matter if a girl is there and one person and 7 guys are around. It should
Yeah,
not matter. They should know
correct,
how to behave.
correct.
Yeah. Like what I was about to say was meeting you where we are as a society, I wouldn't feel comfortable being in a room with 7 guys.
Exactly.
But I can say at the same time, I have one guy friend and he's the only guy friend in the friend group and we've all been in like my friend's dorm and it hasn't been a problem because we're all girls and that's just how we are and
Mhm.
that's how we were socialized to respect each other. And but what I'm saying, there's nothing wrong with trying to push us towards that perfect world by having
Exactly.
this
No, there's
conversation.
nothing, and I agree with that. But remember, just like everything else, it's a step. So you have to judge for yourself. You in college. If you feel comfortable being the only girl in those 7 guys, don't try to prove to yourself because we're not there yet. So you have to still try to make yourself feel comfortable. If you don't think you're comfortable, walk away. We hope to get there. We're not there yet.
Mandy?
So the sorry, Mundi just not Mundi. Team A dot just said the truth is she shouldn't have to remove herself. The fact that we're bringing this up is rape culture. That's what I
Yes,
Yeah.
wanted to say. The
correct.
whole thing is culture because it is the same thing that if a man is in a room with 7 women, he won't feel uncomfortable. We don't say, why is he in this space? We don't say, well,
Exactly.
he should have known that one intention, one had
Correct.
this,
Correct.
whatever
Yeah.
intention. And that's because, again, we are
The
not saying
culture.
that like, it's culture. And that goes back to what we were saying before. You were socialized when you were young to believe that, like, you have the right, like, because you're in a room with 6 other guys and there's one woman, that you have the right to take away her rights as a woman to be in a space and not feel threatened with the possibility of something happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
and
so,
I
like,
hear you, and I
so
hear you, Woody. However, just like
I
what
just
we're
want to
going through as Black people in America, where we want to be and where we are 2 different things, and that we cannot close our eyes and say this is rape culture, and we shouldn't feel this way, and we should be able to stay. Yes, just
no,
like Black in America, there's a lot of things that we should be able to do that we can't do that we hope to do, but closing an eye to it and said, I'm staying because, I can do this, I can do that, and then something happened to you. It is a
that's why
process
so
where
All
we
right,
should.
so we
civil
we we have
rights
a
doesn't
question,
promise.
guys, to ponder about. Someone asks, guys, you are talking about the wrong point. He said, for example, it is it is the same sex that does the raping. For example, one girl and seven girls, and the one girl gets raped. Should she had left as well?
Exactly.
Right.
I
That's
feel like
the thing is
our
that like can I finish my point, please?
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's really like this whole it's really like again, so I didn't even like I've been a victim of sexual assault, like, and not just once, like my whole like young childhood, in some way or another somebody has sexualized me. So the fact is that like the conversation about like where you're putting yourself and all of that other stuff, that doesn't matter, because it goes back to what I forgot who was saying it, whatever. The intention was on that person, right? And
Yeah.
so the conversation should be, we have young nephews, we have sons, we have cousins or whatever. The conversation should be to the boys. Understand that if you are in this space, that you do not have the right to touch, to to feel that you have ownership over anyone but yourself. And that's where we have to, like, all of this other stuff doesn't matter. It's, you know what I mean? Like, that's where we have to now take accountability as society to start indoctrinating them since they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years
Yep.
old. No more
So
boys will be boys. A
But it's
girl
not.
girl should sit this way.
so you
It's
just said a
not.
statement, Rudy. You just said a statement, and you said society. We got to talk to our nephews. Da da da. To the boys, you don't have the right to touch or et cetera, et cetera. Where's the statement that says to the girls?
Exactly.
What?
That's what I was about to say. It needs to be a conversation that is
It's
with
a
the women as well.
conversation.
It needs to
Hold on, hold on, hold
be
on,
all
hold
the
on,
children
Whoa.
together. You
hold
can't
on.
just
Right,
single
Rudy.
out the boys the same way
Agreed.
you can't just single out the girls. So
And
if you want people to conduct themselves in a certain manner, it needs to be female and male present in that conversation. Because
and
women don't
that
have the right to touch men
Guys,
any way they want to,
agreed.
any more than a man has the right to touch a woman any way he wants to. Everybody needs to keep them hands to themselves unless they get consent. That needs to be the
And
conversation.
and to me, that's the point I've been trying to bring home. And that's the point I guess the person just mentioned as well, that a lot of time it's girls doing something to girls. We can't sit in the show and say this girls, 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 guys doing things to girls when I mean, you guys don't even want to touch that one, but we know the issue with the priests and the little boys. There's so many different areas that people have been victimized. Same sex, little kids. Little kids is a big area. College kids are a big area, but it's not just the perceived, boy raping girl. It's not just the
so
perceived that we all know about.
So
can
then,
I go back to the
go ahead,
question? Can
Rudy.
I go back to the question that Markel asked? Markel, the reason why I say boys is because part of rape culture now is already indoctrinating girls. That's already what's happening by telling them how you dress, where you should be, how you should be presented in society. There's a thing tied to morality. So that's already been happening when you're like, I've seen where like people will say like a little girl shouldn't wear this type of bathing suit, or she should sit this way or whatever. So it's already been happening. So what I'm saying now is that that same energy of conversation of teaching girls how to act, we now have to shift it to little boys and tell them how to act. So now it's on a level playing field. That's what I'm trying to say. Do you understand what I mean? That like
Yeah.
that's part of rape culture, that it's already been indoctrinated on how we're
And
telling girls how to act in the sociability and the respectability politics and the socialization. Now we need to take that energy and harness it to the boys who are doing that. And that's where we haven't done.
Yeah.
That's true.
Do we think that there are more male predators, based off this question, that are out there? There's more male predators than female predators?
Statistically,
No.
we can't
I,
even
I,
address
I
that.
have
Oh, hold on.
Whoa.
Statistically, we can't even address that because males don't come forward for two reasons. Because they,
that's
again, like we were
exactly
saying,
what I
they
was
don't
going
want the
to say.
power taken away from them, and
Yeah.
again, they don't want to be called a predator when they were in fact victimized. So it's a double-edged sword. They don't want to come forward. So we don't even have evidence.
We don't have the
Yeah.
data. We don't have
I
the
know a
data
lot.
to support that.
fact, I know a lot of men who have been raped and who told me about their stories, and they never came forward and said anything. It was family members, they had evidence, they never came forward and said anything because they didn't want to be seen as the aggressor, or they didn't want to be seen as a victim. So we don't even
Yeah,
have the statistics to tell you, like, if it's a male or female, like who's
yeah.
more of a predator.
I think
Because
that
there's not a lot of. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
okay, yeah, I think that is a good question because I feel like we do tend to forget about the boys that are victimized, especially by people that are older, like older women that they may know, that they may have trusted, or even if they were in a consensual relationship with an older woman, that still is rape.
Yeah.
And that's still rape. I feel like we need to start putting out more education about what is wrong and what is right. You should not be 14 dating somebody that is 30. You should
And I
not
want
be,
to
whether you're a man or a woman, or you're a younger boy with an older woman. I feel like if we offered more support to all the victims, no matter what happened to them, that it would become better and more people could come forward and we could, create accountability.
And we have to change the mindset around I think maybe expectations around men as sexual beings, because that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Men
Yes.
like this was sensationalized. I forget the name, but this 14-year-old boy was in a relationship with his 30-year-old teacher. She ended up going to jail, but the press took it and ran and said, "Oh, it was a torrid love affair, turned like twisted, like she had no control
Very
over it. It was just her whims." Like, no, she's a rapist.
Yeah.
And
And
then
So even
we're also not touching on coaches. There's a lot of boys that get raped by their coaches. They trust these people. They spend a lot of time with these people, and unfortunately, they don't say anything when it happens because of retaliation, because of shame, because of the perceived stigma, and because of, also it's from somebody that they really trust. And they get whipped a lot by their coaches.
So I think one of the things that the through line between all of this is that uh, everyone we're talking about are predators, right? And like animals in the wild, a predator tries to hone in on someone who they think is weak, right?
yeah,
And so part of that thing is if it's a coach or an older woman or an older man or a priest or a girl alone at a party or down an aisle, they have been removed kind of from the herd and has been made vulnerable. And so that's why it's like we have to look at it as a whole, right? Because like in that same instance, and I hate to go back to this, but to nail down my point, if a boy at 12 is raped by an older woman or an older man, he's never said, what did he wear? Where was he? Right?
Exactly.
Like you're looking at like, wow, this old adult did something terrible to this person. But then for a girl, it's quantified for another reason. And so rape is the most underreported crime there is. And it's because people tend not to believe, they shame, they denigrate, they put the victim up. And also, a lot of times, our communities turn our backs on these people. You know what I mean? And we've seen it in schools, in churches, at work. If you're sexually harassed, you have to like jump through hoops to prove that it's your word against his. And so, you know, where we have to talk about the predatory behavior, and I keep on going back to this. What are we doing now that like we know all of this? We're all on the same accord. We know it. How are we going to make a difference in our communities, starting with ourselves and then also the kids and young people who are around us?
Well, we have dealt with this topic, and it's not extensive. My mind is going right now, and I can't help but to think, how do we transition everything that we are hearing right now into a to-do list? But before we can even get to that, There is a place that we're not talking about that I also feel that play a major role in this rape culture, and that place is the church. I believe the church should be a safe place, an environment where if something is going on, that um, any church member should be able to know there is someone in that church that I can go to and say, this is what's happening without feeling judged, without feeling I'm going to be the one to blame. Have you guys experienced anything like this? I'm saying this from a pastoral perspective, where I have seen it, I have witnessed, talked to people who actually have gone through um, um, this issue in the church while in church with other church members. So, have you guys dealt with anything like that, Mandy?
So, my dad kind of knows the story already. I was 13 years old and I just got on Facebook. I was very excited. I started talking to this guy who was 18 years old. And my dad saw the text messages. He took my phone. He said, "No, you're not talking to this person anymore." I never deleted the phone number. So I had gone to church and I saw him in person. And I was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" He's like with all his friends, and he's just like, "Oh, well, how do I know you?" I'm like, "Remember, it's me from Facebook. You told me I was pretty, all this other stuff. You wanted me to send you pictures." He was basically clowning me in front of his friends. And he was like, "Well, no, I don't remember this. This never happened." And I cried and I ran up the stairs, and my friend, she followed me up there. She was like, "What happened?" I explained the situation to her. She was like, "Well, do you still have his number?" I said, "Yes, I do." So she took my phone and she called him. And then his brother came upstairs with all the friends, and they were just like, "Listen, I know your family. I don't want any problems. So how about we just delete the phone number and we forget this ever happened?" But I still had to go to church after all this happened. I should have never deleted it. I should have told my parents, of course. But at the time, I'm 13. I just don't want to get in trouble. But afterward, I still had to see him at like church functions, and I sat in front of him one time at church. Of course, my family has no idea what's going on, but I felt dirty. So I can only imagine how many other girls have gone through this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there are predators everywhere, and I think that's the reason why we're having this type of shows to bring awareness that there are predators everywhere. We've heard on the news, a lot of time you hear about the Catholic Church and that's it. But let me just be the first to say it's happening in all the churches. Okay, it's not just in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
All right, and I want to make sure
Yes.
that we get the words out. But what if I'm asking the ladies, what do you think should be put in place um, to so that we the church can be a safe place where if it's happening they can talk to someone about. What are some of the things that you wish was already there at your church that we didn't have, for example, Mandy, that maybe could have prevented you or even helped you in a situation like this? Melody and Wendy, yes.
I think something that I wish would be in the church were one, trainings and open conversations about consent, um, relationships, what they should look like when they're healthy. Because I don't want to say it, but I don't think a lot of relationships in the church are healthy, especially when religion is involved and you feel unsafe because that person's in a position of power. Um, and I think just trying to change the mindset of like the elders and things like that, because I had to change my mindset by myself. I wasn't always, like, I used to think, if the girl could be partly at fault if she puts herself in that situation. I had to go to the internet, and not even school, even. I had to go to the internet to change my mindset. Like, no, regardless, it's not her fault. It was the perpetrator.
Yeah, I feel like one thing the church always focuses on, and even school, is just abstinence. That's the only way for you to
That's
ever
right.
stay safe. And it took my own experiences with sexual harassment, especially in school, that I realized, I was just like, one, this isn't my fault that they're, behaving this way towards me. I'm abstinent, that doesn't mean that they have a right to, talk to me anyway or violate me in any way. I feel like if we should talk about abstinence, but I feel like we should also talk about other things because, as you get older, you're not always going to make the same decisions as your parents made. I feel like if there was an education for the boys and the girls that you are not entitled to her body or his body, you shouldn't be touching people this way, only do stuff if they say yes, you should ask for different types of consent. I feel like if we made it an open conversation, that it would honestly be better for everyone.
Less shame around sex.
Yeah.
I think, and this keeps replaying back in my mind. Anne-Marie Thomason says this earlier before that predators prey. What was it? It says seek out. There you go. Predators seek out their prey. Right. So if you just look at that sentence and that mindset, predators don't just see you and the first time they see you, that's when they start talking to you, trying to, rape you, whatever the case may be. They're studying you, your movements, what you wear, things of that sort, your actions and stuff like that, and try to corner you in a position for that act to happen, right? I think as people, we should be doing that as well. And I say people because I'm speaking male and female from this standpoint too. You need to pay attention to your surroundings. You need to pay attention to who's talking to you, how they're talking to you, what type of questions they're asking you, and things of that sort. And as much as you want to say, don't put yourself in certain positions. I know I was playing devil's advocate earlier, and Rudy almost cut my head off. But you want to make sure that you're aware of everything that's around you as much as possible, so that way when you see signs that are coming your way of things that don't make you feel right, and because you know yourself and you growing up, when you start to realize this is not right, this doesn't feel right, you got to do certain things. And because rape is a quiet thing, it's a two individuals thing, because rape is not publicized, it doesn't happen in front of everybody. You have to do a lot of things like document certain things, because just like we stated, Pastor D, like if something were like to happen in church, it's his word versus her word, or her word versus his word. But when you have documentation, like, yo, he texts me at 12:30 talking about send me a picture, he's 12 years older than me and stuff like that. Now it's easier for the church, for people to believe that, yeah, you really were a victim. He was trying to do such and such and such to you. And then I always have this, and I'm instilling it in my daughter and my wife, as far as for females and males too. So my son, you got to be able to learn how to protect yourself. And that's not just by words or saying no, but you need to take some self-discipline classes. You need to, if you get to a certain age, or so to speak, like I know Mandy just hit this age, and so you need to get a gun license. You need to educate yourself about how to carry a gun in the state that you in. Because if you got a gun on your hip, in my opinion, and I might be wrong, you got a gun on your hip, no predator is trying to seek you out, my dude. Like, I'm keeping it 100. They not finna try to seek you out if they know you ain't about that. You won't play around. You walk around with the gun on their hip. They gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna go chase this other cheetah, because this cheetah for real over here.
Yep. My husband got gun licenses when my girls became teenagers. So Monday, going back to you mentioning what else can the church do? I'm thinking a body system specifically for the youngest population, somebody that could be 2 to 3 years older than them, because then they're more open to speaking to these people about something than going to an adult. So a body system at the church is something that I feel like the youth usually is more open. If they're 12, if you have a 15, 16-year-old that knows a little bit about stuff like that, they can talk to, that would be okay with maybe bringing it to an elder if somebody has an issue. It's kind of like when you're in school, when you're in, I think, high school, and then sometimes you have peer. I know my kids' high school had kind of like a peer program, somebody else that they can talk to that's also a peer before they bring something else. So that's something that, for the youngest population, a buddy system, a peer program, someone that they feel like they can, hey, you know what, this is what happened to me. I'm a little afraid to talk to people about it. What do you think? How can, something like that. I think kids would, not kids, the younger population would probably be open to something like that versus maybe going to speak to an oldest person that they might not even trust.
But I think
I
we also have to change the culture of the church.
that's
Yeah.
what I was
Agreed.
What I mean by that is there are pastors who are still preaching that
Yeah.
men have or men are entitled to the female body,
Mm.
and they'll preach this eloquent sermon, and the church will be on fire. All the men will be like, preach it, brother, because he's describing the role of the woman in such a way, to say that when a man have a sexual urge, when a husband have sexual urges toward his wife, it is his right to take her. Okay, and here's a pastor preaching that, and you have young boys or young teenagers listening to that in the church as well.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying here? So
yes.
we see that the
Yeah.
men are very, energetic, because this is a good sermon. The pastor is telling the wife to give them more sex, but in reality, the pastor is doing a disservice not only
Yes.
to the married couples, but he's also doing a disservice to the younger generations
Yeah.
who are actually sitting in the church and listening to that kind of sermon, because that young girl is going to feel, well, men are entitled over my body, which
Yeah.
means they, if they're being raped, or if they're being overly sexualized by their parents or that cousins or that uncle, they're not going to say anything to the church, because this is what the church is teaching.
Yes.
You understand? The
Yes.
question I want to ask you
Yes.
guys right now, again, I'm not playing the devil's advocate. Can a husband rape his wife?
No,
Yes.
absolutely
Yes.
not.
I hear
What
you.
you
Yes,
said,
they can.
Karen, that is
Yes,
not right.
So
yes,
All right, well,
yes.
let me hear
A
it.
husband can rape his wife.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead with it.
so can I so I one of the things that I wanted to bring up was that, and you touched on it a little bit, is that like I remember when my one of my nephews was in he went to his pediatric doctor, and she made a really good point about like no one can touch your bathing suit parts, right?
Yeah.
Like so when he was young, he knew that if anybody touched him in that way, it goes back to what Markel said, it didn't feel right, right? Like, and so in the church, you start off, we're going to put the issue of the pastor to the side. You start off young with kids. You
Mm-hmm.
have these conversations, and that like what we used to do it with like with kidnapping kids, stranger danger, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you saw a white van when I was a kid, if you saw this or whatever, you would yell stranger danger. We have to we have to get kids comfortable in a place that when they are in church where they think that it's supposed to be a safe haven, that they still have a voice, that people are still listening to them at that young age, so that they know that like even if it's, because it could be a youth pastor, right? Or it could be a deacon or a pastor, that's someone that like when they're doing it to them, whatever feels wrong, that they have a voice in telling people that like, wait a minute, this isn't right. And so that's one point. The other point is that absolutely a woman can be raped by her husband, because that marriage license doesn't give you autonomy over a woman's body, right? And so just because we're in a committed relationship, and I may have said yes 3,000 times, that one time I say no, no is still no, because my autonomy is mine. It reminds me of this joke where there was this pastor who every Sunday would talk about like how much he loved his wife, but Monday through Saturday he would be his wife. So one Sunday he came to church, and all of her stuff, all of their stuff was in the church, and he's like, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I moved into church because apparently that's the only place where you love me, right? Like when we're at home, you do all of this other stuff to me." So we have to have this conversation about like um, the reality of like how how we live in this patriarchal and misogynistic society, and how we change the mindset so that we understand that like we have autonomy over ourselves, and we start to indoctrinate and change kids at a young age so that they can know what feels right and what feels wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
so I
I
think
think I think
that was
to answer your question, I got two parts because it's based off a comment that I see in here as well. I think when you ask the question, can a husband rape his wife, and I'll put the vice versa, can a wife rape her husband? Absolutely, um, and it's not right, and it shouldn't happen. So I think what people misconstrue is the term that women should submit to their husbands, but I think we got to dig deep and understand what submitting means. A lot of people take that statement as he's dominant and whatever he says, you got to do. And that's not what submitting means. You see what I'm saying? So once we educate ourselves and learn that, and whatever church that was, if I was there and I was sitting with my wife and my kids was there, I'm getting my kids up and we walking out. I'm not even letting them listen to that type of message because especially young people are very good at pretending that they're not listening, but listening. And you gotta really be mindful of that because they would be in the other room and come back to you hours later. Like Ayla would come back hours later and be like, "Hey, so you and mommy were talking about such and such and such," and I'm like, "Well, you wasn't even in here when we was talking about it. You were in the room playing," but they're listening. So we got to protect the type of stuff that they hear. So being in the church and someone's preaching a message like that, I don't even want that to be heard because that doesn't make sense. But just to go back to, I know we're talking about the rape culture and everything like that with this episode and what the church can do. I think Jimmy said something in here is very important. I think the church needs to take a better step on accusations.
Yes.
A lot of times when it's brought to a pastor or to a head deacon or something like that, they give you the okay, I'm gonna handle it, or they may even bring the person in, we'll talk about it, or whatever the case may be. But then you end up in a situation like Mandy when she was younger, and that person is still around the church. And if so now not only is she being affected by the action, she's now being traumatized by it more and more and more going forward because this person is around and is hanging around the church and things of that sort. So I think there's a misstep that the church needs to take action in.
Yeah, a lot of it in the church is a lot of closet talk. Let's bury it as much as possible because there's a shameness associated with it. We don't want that coming to the church. So we do need that transparency. We do need to make people feel safe. I agree with Rudy. We do need to teach, just like the pediatricians. I know when my kids were small, there were times that the pediatrician would ask me to get out of the room, specifically when they became, 12, 13-year old, and they would make me get out so they could ask them questions that normally they would not want to say anything in front of me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the church would need to do that same to make, these kids feel safe in that if someone at the church is doing something to them, that they can have a place to say, you know what, maybe I can't talk to my parent, but I could definitely go and talk to someone here. But then once they talk to you, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to bury it for the sake of your church, or will you go ahead and believe them and do something further? I think that is the purpose of this show, is to bring transparency to issues like this and hopefully make them an open forum so people know where to go and how to get help if they need to. Remove the shameness from it. There's no shame in this.
Yeah, I feel like one thing we should, one thing I would just like to say is even if you take all the right steps, it can still happen to you. Like, I feel like, of course, we need education. We need to stop, stigmatizing it, bringing shame to this. But I feel like at the end of the day, it could still happen to you. And I feel like you should know you're not alone. You shouldn't feel shameful about what you did. You're not a victim. You're a survivor of whatever happened to you. Even if it wasn't an assault by somebody you know, a parent, it is not your fault. I feel like people should start believing the victims more. Never, well, she could be lying. She might be trying to tarnish his, or he wanted it from her. I feel like it's not ever your fault.
And now that you survived, it goes back to the defense thing that Marco was talking about. You can take actions to better equip yourself and protect yourself. So you don't have to feel like, scared to move out in your day-to-day experience. You can do things
And
to
the
protect yourself
process
better.
and the
Hold on, hold
process of
on.
healing is hard.
Did you just call me Uncle Markel?
Uncle Marco, Uncle
Oh,
I thought
all
the
right,
same thing.
all
I thought
right,
the same thing.
all right.
I
And
I
the
I want
process,
to say I want to say this again. I'm grateful for shows like this because we're not afraid to speak the truth. Okay. I feel the church needs to, and I want to say I agree with Jimmy Charles, who also made the same statement. He said if churches take accusations seriously and follow all legal pathways
yeah,
and support the victims, people will be willing to seek help from the church. I
yeah,
think we can do one of the greatest tragedy we can do to our members is to try to let's handle this behind closed doors. I remember I paid a significant the cost was high for me when I blow the whistle on a sexual predator and did in the Haitian community. I had pastors talk to me saying I didn't handle it properly. I had church members talked to me and became angry at me, saying that I didn't handle it properly. In other words, um, I'm re- I'm mandated by law. Okay, if there's a sexual assault going on, I am mandated by law to report it to the authority, and they themselves will do what they do, which is they do the interview, they follow up and find out whether or not the accusation is actually true or false. It's not the job of the pastor to determine whether or not the rape happened or didn't happen, but it is your responsibility to report what you have heard from the person who said, this is what happened to me. Okay, so I'm challenging the pastors to always remember that. And I think for me, and I'm going to be 100% vulnerable here, the part that I believe I didn't handle properly is I didn't reach out to the perpetrator. I didn't reach out to him in a way to say there's still hope for you, that God can still be with you, that you can ask God for forgiveness. You can ask the person that you did this to for forgiveness. Um, that part I never did, and I wish that I did. But the legal aspect of it, I feel that we should not be become we should not allow ourselves because we are Christian pastor, because we are pastor, to feel that we can just handle this behind closed doors. Because as Mandy mentioned earlier, if that's what you do, then that person remains in the church and they have more opportunities to become to abuse another person within that
yeah,
church or even move to another church. So you are doing a disservice to the members of your congregation. You are doing a disservice to the member of your communities by not dealing with this the way that we should. Okay. So
yeah.
someone else, a lot of victims are afraid. This is from Sweet Nina Baby. A lot of victims are afraid to come forward because not believing them when they tell you it's also another form of being
yeah,
re-victimized. And so you
yeah,
can understand this in the church. If we don't listen to them, if we don't even provide them with a way of expressing what happened and make them feel that it's okay for them to express what's going on, we are doing a disfavor to them as well. Okay.
Yes.
And we have a
I
long
have
statement from Miriam. She said that there are different ways that we can combat the rape culture. She said, teach your children about consent, and you guys talk about that. And she said, especially the boys. And I think that's the point that Woody was trying to draw across, that we need to teach our boys this thing called consent. And we need to call out problems in our media. We need to challenge conventional definitions of masculinity. We need to resist slut shaming and victim blaming. We were just talking about that. And that we need to use words carefully. Don't be a bystander. Brother Jimmy just mentioned that. The church cannot be a bystander. Mark will talk about that. As parents of fathers of young boys and young, we can't be bystanders. And last and not least, she mentioned that we need to create policies in schools and workplace that show support for the survivors. And then we also support organizations that are working to fight rape culture. I want to thank you so much,
can
Miriam,
I add,
for
can
yeah.
I add I think one more thing that I wanted to say is that if you are a victim of sexual assault and you tell someone and you've been muted, that's the time where you need to amplify your voice. Just tell more and more people until they listen to you,
Yeah.
um, because that's part of like that fear that no one is listening to you. Amplify your voice and scream until you're heard. So that was the last thing that I wanted to add to her point.
Well, I want to take this time if to first of all to welcome Mandy, our newest member to the panel today. Thank you so much for being here. And to the rest of the family, you guys did an exceptional job. So we want to remind everyone, if you enjoyed this show, if you enjoy the kind of programs that we are bringing to you week after week, please let us know. Send us an email. You can reach out to us on Facebook, on YouTube. Just let us know what's happening, and if you have a specific topic that you would like for us to kind of talk about, by all means share it with us. Let us know exactly what you have in mind. I want to take the opportunity to remind you, if you are watching this program on YouTube, that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you can you will always know what's coming ahead of time. Amen. So I want to take this time right now to pray. This is such an important topic that we need to take the time to pray for those who are either a victim or those who are no longer a victim. I hate using the word victim, um, because now you are empowered not only to make a difference, but you are a survivor. Okay, you now can lead this fight against the predators that are out there. So I want to take a moment, if you guys don't mind, to bow your heads and pray with me. Father God, we just want to say thank you so much for this program today. There are so many of your young children, whether they are in church or whether they are outside of the church, that once upon a time were either victim themselves or they were the perpetrators themselves for whatever reason, Father God. Right now, we are asking in Jesus' name that the doors are open for anyone, Father God, who, for one reason or another, they felt that you didn't love them because of what happened to them. Father God, I just pray right now that you allow your love to come upon them and let them know that it wasn't their fault. Father God, I ask that you will give them the love from above and let them know that they are survivors, that they are no longer a victim, but they are survivors, and give them the strength and the resilience to use that particular gift that you give them, the gift of love, the gift of strength, to go back into their communities, to go back into the churches, to teach young men and young women what this culture, this rape culture is all about, so that they can prevent predators from doing the wrong, from doing this evil thing to your children. Father God, we ask for your Holy Spirit to lead the way. We thank you so much for every single members of the Remedy team, that you will continue to teach us and empower us and give us the skills that are necessary so that we can continue to come and bring this kind of programs to your people. May you bless the rest of the day for us. Bless everyone, whether or not they were watching on Facebook or on YouTube. May you bless them, keep them safe, keep them family safe, Father God. We love you. We thank you. We honor you. Until next time, in Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, family. It was a wonderful, wonderful show. We will see each other again next week. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Take care, everyone.